Welcome to the Void Experiment. Every country has a well-known haunted location, and every city has an area people avoid without knowing exactly why. There are houses sitting empty across the US because nobody wants to live in them due to their strange or eerie vibe. A stretch of road where accidents keep happening. A building where people go in normal and come out oddly changed. We call these places haunted, creepy, or downright evil. But I have a secret that many don't know. There's a mechanism. As strange as it sounds, consciousness can literally be bound into a geographic location. Not metaphorically, not poetically, but through a specific operational process that makes that place function as a node. I've been mapping one of these networks for a few years, and what I'm seeing isn't random darkness, it's architecture. Today we're going to look at how locations become sentient. Before we get into talking about nodes anchoring into locations, you should understand what I mean by anchoring, because it's not what horror movies show you. An anchor isn't a ghost haunting a location. It's not residual energy playing on loop. Those are real phenomena, but they're different things entirely. A consciousness anchor is when a specific entity or working binds itself to a physical location through a consecration process. With either blood, sigils being used with sacred geometry or ritual summoning. Once the anchor is set, that location becomes a functioning node. It operates and pulls. It influences everything and everyone who enters it. Think about what Agrippa wrote in the 1500s, that consecration has two components: the power of the person consecrating, and the virtue of the prayer or invocation used. The same principle applies in reverse. When someone with genuine spiritual authority performs a consecration with the right invocations at the right location, they're not just blessing a space, they can bind something into it. The location doesn't just hold the entity, it becomes an extension of it. Good examples of this are the Los Feliz Murder House, the Monroe Demon House, the Sally House, the Cecil Hotel, the Goldfield, and so forth. There are three types of anchored locations. First type, frozen sites. These are locations where consciousness got trapped in a sealed loop. The event happened, the loop was set, and the site has been holding that same configuration ever since. Los Feliz Murder House in LA is one of these. It's been maintained, literally kept vacant and preserved for decades, while the consciousness inside stays locked in the same pattern. Nobody's freed it. Nobody's disrupted it. The loop just keeps running. Second type. These aren't holding consciousness in place. They're moving it through. The Cecil Hotel operates this way. It's been continuously inhabited for a century. Serial killers didn't just stay there. They operated from it as a base. Ramirez, then Unterweger 6 years later, drawn back to the same building. The location doesn't trap, it feeds. Every person who walks through it contributes energy to the working without ever knowing. Third type, amplification points. These are the architectural anchors, places built specifically using sacred geometry to amplify the signal from the entity or working. They don't hold consciousness themselves. They amplify whatever signal is running through the network. So how does a location actually become anchored? What's the operational process? There are three primary methods, and they can be used alone or combined. Blood consecration is the oldest. You consecrate a location through death, specifically, death performed as ritual. The consciousness of the victim doesn't just leave the location, it gets bound into it. The blood becomes the anchor's foundation. This is documented across cultures, going back thousands of years. It's why ancient temples were built on sacrifice sites. Sacred geometry is the second method. Specific architectural forms, mathematical ratios, angular relationships, spatial configurations create resonance with consciousness at frequencies that physical matter normally doesn't access. Wright's houses use this. Mayan temple geometry translated into residential architecture. The building itself becomes a tuning fork. Invocation is the third. Certain names, prayers, and ritual sequences performed at a location seal the working. This is where Agrippa's frameworks become critical, because he documents the principle that certain prayers and invocations performed by someone with genuine spiritual authority can permanently alter the consciousness profile of a physical space. When you combine all three, blood at the site, sacred geometry in the structure, invocations performed by a human operator with real authority, you get something that persists across generations. Not because of ghosts, because the architecture of the working is self-sustaining. Why it pulls. Here's what is scary about anchored locations. They don't just anchor, they attract. The Cecil Hotel didn't just happen to be where two serial killers stayed. Ramirez gravitated there. Then Unterweger, an Austrian journalist, flew across the world and specifically chose that building. But he chose the same way Ramirez chose it. Anchored locations pull people with fractured consciousness signatures toward them. Serial killers, drug addicts, people with mental illness and high sensitivity, anyone whose frequency resonates with what's running. It's frequency at the site. This isn't coincidence. The anchor needs a lot of attention. It needs energetic events, consciousness moving through it. Every death, every overdose, every murder at the location feeds the node. This is why these places become famous. It's not just because terrible things happen there. It's because the anchor ensures terrible things keep happening, and that the story keeps being told. Attention is fuel. The moment you start investigating one of these locations, you should understand. You're not just studying it, you're feeding it. When you hear of a haunted location, the first thing you should ask before entering is it frozen or active? Is it holding consciousness or moving it through? Is there architecture involved? Buildings designed to amplify the signal? And most importantly, who built it and why? Because node locations don't become alive on their own. Someone most likely woke them up. And understanding how is the first step toward understanding how to stop the feeding and suffering. Agrippa methods work on the ceremonial and architectural layer. By following the rituals for removal of node energy, it breaks the geometry, nullifies the invocations. But some anchors run deeper than that. When consciousness has been embedded in a location for generations and are fed by repeated events, observed over and over, reinforced by collective attention decade after decade, the suffering sinks into the substrate itself. That's where the acacia plant becomes a necessary solution. Indigenous cultures across multiple continents used acacia-based DMT preparations specifically to access and clear consciousness at deeply rooted sites. It doesn't just purify the surface. It manipulates the substrate directly, the same level where the anchor was originally set. DMT doesn't work through ceremony or invocation. It works at the consciousness level itself, bypassing the ritual architecture entirely. So if you're dealing with a location that's been active for centuries, where the energy has been constantly reinforced and reobserved, you may need both approaches. Agrippa, for the structure. The acacia, for what's underneath it. I'm in no way telling you to use DMT. Please don't do that. Find a shaman or practitioner who has access to the substrate and can perform the extraction with exact procedural knowledge. Beware of self-proclaimed exorcists. Anyone can get an exorcist certificate online, and those that claim to be trained by a priest are the biggest charlatans out there. Don't let them into your house. it will make things worse. If you need advice on who to trust, please reach out. I have a good network of practitioners that I can recommend. A good rule of thumb to follow: if they are doing it for attention, fame, or money, they are fake and you should look elsewhere. Authentic healers aren't doing it for the likes. This is the Void Experiment. I'm Amy Rossi. If you have a location that is so haunted that it feels like you are standing on desecrated ground, drop your location in the comments. If you need more info on node anchoring and removal, I have a free Discord channel to help. See you next time.